A very warm welcome to IDFC FIRST Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta and you're watching part 2 of our highlights from our inaugural Springboard in Mumbai. Tonight on the show, we'll be focusing on empowering MSMEs for global competitiveness, exploring how India's MSMEs can leverage banking innovations and economic strengths to get a competitive advantage. On the show tonight, I speak to Chinmay Dhoble, Head Retail Liabilities and Branch Banking, IDFC FIRST Bank, who speaks to me about tailored financial solutions, digital transformation and sustainable growth for MSMEs.
Mumbai, India's financial heartbeat and a city of unending possibilities. A hub of growth, innovation and opportunity, driving India's economic ambitions. With a legacy of empowering India's MSMEs, this knowledge series brings together industry experts to share insights to propel India's entrepreneurs onto the global stage. IDFC FIRST Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow, Mumbai Springboard, exclusively on ET Now.
Chinmay, thank you so much for joining us today. Our fireside chat today is to really set the context of what the theme of the event is today, as well as the larger focus for our season this year. So, there are 63 million MSMEs in India, and 99% of them are micro enterprises. And they remain micro through their life cycle. So whether it is due to lack of access to technology or low productivity, it is believed that Indian businesses lack the competitiveness of their global counterparts. So essentially, whenever I have spoken to a lot of smaller, medium-sized businesses on the show, there is a sense of ambition, there is a sense of aspiration. They are thinking big, they are thinking global, but the question remains how. And that's exactly how I want to start this conversation today. What needs to be done to make our MSMEs, India's MSMEs, competitive, globally competitive? How can they move up the value chain? How can they scale up? Over to you, Chinmay.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think over a period of 12 years, you have created a great property here. And my compliments to all the entrepreneurs who are a part of this session, as well as all the entrepreneurs across the country. All of you are the builders of this nation. So just to take a cue or extend the numbers that you were talking about. So about 65 million MSMEs, most of them are micro. See, if I have to broadly, so a lot of times we talk about access to finance, access to technology. However, I think the key issue here is the productivity part of it. So if you see MSMEs, their productivity is somewhere in the range of 25 to 30% of large corporates. And if we have to become globally competitive or competitive in general, I think it will happen through innovation, scale, and efficiency. So when I say productivity, I'm using productivity in broad terms. Look at it more in terms of efficiency. But eventually, the growth of this sector, or any entity for that matter, happens if they get the right tools and the right access to finance, capital, solutions at every stage of their growth. So I don't think there is a magic formula for becoming globally competitive. It's more about getting the right tool at the right point in time. Just to give you an example, think of a very simple, basic industry which is like the backbone of manufacturing in India, say textile manufacturing. Now, a micro entrepreneur, how do you start? You would have typically a small power loom, hand loom kind of setup. Then, as you become a small entity which is turnover between, say, 5 crore to 50 crore, you will have more mechanized machines, a setup of your own. When you become a medium kind of entity, which is 50 to 250 crores, you will have automated machines, better manufacturing facility. So this is as far as the basic physical infrastructure is concerned. Similarly, in terms of manpower, the manpower of a micro entity would be, say, 5 to 10 people, largely known in the family. In a small entity, you will have a bit of skilled staff, but a lot of it will be on-the-job learning. Whereas Once you become a medium entity, then you are able to hire qualified manpower, you are able to retain them. But what follows along with this is also the investment in your HR systems, right? You don't require a particular HR system at a small level. Then you need an HRMS. You might not be able to afford an entire HR team, but you will need some solution there. As you become medium, you will have a full stack HR team, so on and so forth in technology, whether it comes to, very importantly, compliances. Because as you become bigger, compliances become more and more important. So the point here is that there is no clear or simple answer to to move from being a micro entity to a small, medium, or a large entity. It is a series of steps with a series of capabilities getting added and availing the right solution, having access to that solution, and taking that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you, Chinmay. But I think one way to also be competitive is to leverage our strengths. So I want to take a macro point of view right now. What, according to you, are the biggest strengths of India today, and how can smaller businesses and entrepreneurs, capitalize on them?
I think we are very fortunate that we are living in times where the Indian economy has such significant tailwinds. If you look at a macro picture from a market perspective, India is a very large consumer market, growing market, rapid urbanization, people's income levels going up. So the consumption demand will keep increasing. That automatically leads to growth of MSMEs. The other important thing is the diverse industry base that we have in India and the kind of penetration that MSMEs have here. So on the agriculture side, and I will take two extreme examples. On the agriculture side, you have now agri-tech companies coming and revolutionizing the way we have been doing farming. Again, a very big productivity unlock. To the other end, now you have entities which are manufacturing components for satellites and cryogenics. In between, we have somewhere services, IT, and the entire manufacturing services, logistics setup. So I think the diverse range of industries that this country offers in itself is an opportunity and a beauty of entrepreneurs in general, is their ability to pivot from one industry to another. Like most of us, we would remain restricted to one line. If I'm in financial services, largely I will restrict to financial services throughout my career. This is not what I have seen with entrepreneurs. They can very easily pivot. From, I think, a very good frame of what are the tailwinds and what are the opportunities in India is given by the government in terms of the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme. So while the scheme in itself is a policy initiative which will take its own shape, the pillars of the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme actually tells you which is the path on which the MSMEs will grow and where do opportunities in India lie. So what are the pillars? One is obviously the physical infrastructure. So you see so much of investment happening in roads, whether it is railways, ports. You have smart cities coming up. The second is what is matched equally or faster than this is the digital infrastructure. And as the Deputy CM also pointed out, the growth and efficiency unlock is again largely going to be through public digital infrastructure. And India, while we see the Indian consumer stack, and it is quite popular because all of us are users of that, I think there is a very significant stack which is getting built on the business side. And the pivotal point, or I think again the point around which it will revolve will be the Udyam Aadhar, which is something which now the government has promoted and virtually every entity has it. Then you have the entire payment solution, not only on the consumer side, but you have UPI, you have solutions like BBPS, which help entities pay bills and collect bills. You have outstanding payment and collection solutions, and we keep on speaking to people from similar industries across the world. The kind of payment stack India has, I mean, I don't think there is any distant second. I can't imagine who's close to us. So there is a lot of investment happening on the digital infrastructure side. The other initiative the government is pushing is on skill development. So one scheme, of course, all of us know is the National Skill Development Scheme. But apart from that, there are a lot of interfaces and platforms which the government is creating for skill development across sectors. So what most of us see is the vocational training, getting people into formal workforce, etc. But at the same time, there is a lot of effort which is happening, for example, in IT upskilling. Okay, now these are people of a certain stature, but then India has a great competitive advantage here, and it's a fast-moving sector, so it makes a lot of sense that there is upskilling happening in the IT space, but the government acknowledging and recognizing it in itself is a big thing. And of course, the last pillar is India being the manufacturing hub of the world by 2030. And while services and IT, these sectors grow, manufacturing will continue to be the biggest employment generator. And to that extent, the kind of effort the government is putting in manufacturing, I think is phenomenal. So just to summarize, we have significant macro tailwinds in terms of our own demographics and what is happening in our economy. But if you ask me, the bigger tailwind is the Vision 2030 by the Government of India and the work that is happening on that side. It is very broad-based, where everybody can participate, and I think that is going to be a game changer.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching IDFC FIRST Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. Tonight we are bringing you highlights from our Mumbai Springboard. Listen in.
So when we talk about funding requirement for MSMEs, they tend to be seasonal and short-term in nature, right? So tell me, how are you at IDFC FIRST Bank, tailoring your products to meet these demands? And especially when it comes to creating lending products, how do you customize for your MSME customers?
So funding requirements, I think I will break them into two parts. One is we look at funding requirements very simply as loans, but funding requirement has two components to it, which is equity and debt. And in my earlier example, when I was giving you an example of evolution of a micro enterprise to a medium or a large enterprise, there are different points in time where the entities also need capital, right? So largely you are self-funded, then you have some kind of seed funding, but at some point in time you move from a private equity to a listed kind of entity. So I think creating infrastructure and governance mechanism for a company to raise capital is very, very critical, because debt typically follows capital, or debt typically follows equity. And I think that is one important aspect we have to consider. Now, when it comes to debt or lending solutions, again, they are of two types. One is your short-term requirements, which are seasonal, which are very time-bound, and then there are relatively long-term requirements. And I think the key is in differentiating the two and designing products accordingly. Our philosophy is very simple. We try to use analytics, models to understand cash flows. Essentially, lending is all about understanding cash flows. And cash flows today, fortunately for us, today there are multiple data points available. Earlier, we used to look at only balance sheets and P&Ls and those thick documents. Then we started looking at banking. Today, you have GST. So you have a lot of these unconventional ways of assessing cash flows, determining cash flows. On top of it, then you have to add the layer of the type of business or the nature of the industry, because different industries have different working capital cycles. Different industries have different margins. So if you are able to assess cash flows, if you are able to assess margins, and if you are able to assess the working capital cycles, you will be able to curate solutions by industries. So we do a lot of persona-based lending. We have advanced models and algorithms which help us assess businesses. And I should again really thank and compliment the entrepreneurs. I don't like calling people MSMEs. MSMEs are entities, people are entrepreneurs. But overall, and we have been doing this for quite some time now. And the MSME industry or entrepreneurs have been excellent paymasters for the bank. And all of us are really grateful to you.
So technology is impacting sectors across the board, but I'm keen to understand how traditional sectors like the banking sector and how you at IDFC FIRST Bank is really taking to technology and digitization. I understand that you have a completely digitized loan process, from application to dispersal. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you have seen, but the 3 pillars on which our bank has been built is ethical, digital, and social good. Okay, so digital is one of the founding stone or foundation of this bank. I have been doing SME lending for quite some time now, and I have seen that cycle where we used to take such thick financials and bank statements, and when people used to go and meet and understand and visit factories, it used to be a very long cycle. A lot of times we couldn't ask the right questions. Sometimes entrepreneurs couldn't explain to us what they were doing, or we couldn't understand. But over the last 4 or 5 years, I think we have completely changed the game. So I will just give you a quick overview of how our lending journey works. One is there is a formal process of application where somebody would go get a form signed, photographs, documents. Now everything happens digitally. Customers can come and apply on their own, and there is a journey through which they can go. Or there are assisted journeys, but they are digital journeys. So your KYC will be done digitally. We will do your biometric. Your basic validation is done. We will take your PAN number. We will validate it. We will not ask you for physical bank statements. We will ask you for bank statements in PDF. We will take financials in PDF. Those will go. The engine will run those. Give us the eligibility, so there is no reason for somebody to punch records and take out the eligibility. So that is as far as the application process is concerned. Then when it comes to underwriting, and I think that is where the trick lies, because you can still build digital journeys, but what powers up the journeys are your underwriting tools, because that is what differentiates customers from one another. This is where, as I said, we have built advanced algorithms. We have our scorecards. Our bureau data in the country has become very rich. So basis the financials, basis bureau, basis our understanding of industry, we will be able to arrive at an amount which is what you are eligible for, and then the loan gets approved. While doing this, we also do certain fraud checks to see that our customers and the bank is protected. Once we approve, then sometimes the loan can be without a collateral or with collateral. If it's without collateral, then we straight move to disbursing the loan. If it is with collateral, then the collateral assessment is also largely digitized now.
Well, that's fantastic, and we are completely out of time. But one last question before I let you go. The MSME sector, it's known for its diversity. It's a wide range of sectors that we cover on the show as well. So can you talk to us about some of the products that you have, that sort of cater to this diversity, and resonate with customers? Do you have specific products for specific industries?
Okay, so our approach is that we don't like to call them products. We like to call them propositions or solutions, because what people need is integrated solutions. So one example I gave you is on the asset side or on the lending side, where we do a lot of persona-based lending. So depending upon the industry, depending upon the margin, the cash flow cycles, we do underwriting and assess those industries. A lot of this work we have also done on the liability side. Basis the type of industry and what is the requirement, we try to design customized products and solutions. Just to give you an example, suppose you are a contractor. A contractor's very big requirement, of course lending is there, but a very big requirement when they bid for a contract is actually LC and BG. Okay, so for a contractor, the big solution that I have to provide is a very fast LC BG. On the other hand, if you see a fleet operator, somebody who owns trucks, what they need is funding for buying new vehicles, because that is their business, right? So there you have to look at it differently in terms of viability of that business. Similarly, you go industry by industry and you will see that the main 1 or 2 requirements of that industry might be different from each other. And that is how we have tried to structure our products and our platforms.
Well, absolutely, more power to you. And thank you so much for joining us today on this Fireside Chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
It's a pleasure.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC FIRST Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.